Hi, this is Evan from Digital Team Coach. In this video, I want to talk to you about making work simple. And I've developed a framework called Simple Work Framework to be able to give you practical ways of actually simplifying the things that you do. So in the last video, in the last post, we spoke about the problems that we have, work pain that we have, where we might have issues within our organizations internally. It might be some of the workflows between colleagues. It could be that your systems aren't supporting you particularly well. Maybe there's communication issues. Now, what we want to do is look at this Simple Work Framework and talk about the purpose and the requirements and the rewards of implementing simple work. So let's get into it. Firstly, why do we need to simplify in the workplace? This is probably fairly obvious, but we all know that the world is not getting any simpler. There are more and more expectations put upon us. In a lot of areas, there are expectations that we need to be able to produce more with less resources. So to be able to do more with less or the same amount. But the thing is, things are just increasing all the time. And so ultimately, this is not going to be sustainable for us, for our colleagues. So we need to be able to reduce the number of inputs, reduce what we do so that the things that we do commit to, we can provide really high value and make good use of our time, our energies, and our resources. So what I'm saying is, it's not that we are not going to be committed to anything, but it's about being more focused on what those commitments are. So it's lower commitment, not no commitment. All right, so let's talk about then what it takes. What are the ingredients that we need to actually produce meaningful work being simpler? So there are a few things. Firstly, this requires a willingness to actually make the change. And this isn't always granted, particularly when you're working with a number of people. There might be some people who are just happy and comfortable with what they're doing and don't see the need to actually change, even if there are things they're doing that are inefficient, and sometimes just questions don't get asked, and if it's the way that things have always been done, then what's the point of changing them? So firstly, it takes a willingness to change, and this needs to be agreed upon and committed to by everyone who's involved. If you're in a team, if you're in a department, it might just be a couple of people. But firstly, there needs to be a willingness to change, and that also means there needs to be a commitment made by everyone involved. The next thing that we need is time, because things don't just happen by hitting a switch most of the time. So it takes time to change. It takes time to implement new workflows, new habits, new patterns, implementing new ways of using systems, things like that, and new ways of communicating too. So you basically have to keep doing what you're doing in the meantime. You're not going to hit a stop button altogether and change things. You're flying the plane, plus you're changing the engine at the same time. And that requires time. And that can also be a barrier for people. However, the rewards that you have in the long term by making even just some small changes will produce a greater impact down the track. And you can measure what the results of, the return on investment is going to be. You can measure those things in the number of hours that are saved, the amount of money that's put into for making those changes too. Cool. So a willingness and a commitment and the time that's required to change. And now I think even just as important with that is that you need to have a really strong clarity over what it is you're trying to change. And the way I put it is is clarity is more important than resources, because there are so many resources available, lots of free resources available online. It can actually be quite overwhelming to know even where to begin. And when you start to research things, you can go down lots of different rabbit holes and spend lots and lots of time. That might not necessarily be time that's well spent. And also, even if you've got lots and lots of money, if you throw that money at a few different things without having the clarity on what it is you're actually wanting or needing to change and what the end goal is going to be, then those resources are going to be wasted. So clarity is so crucial. It's even more important than the resources that you have, particularly at this stage of planning how you work more simply together. So clarity over resources. Now, let's talk about the benefits of simple work. And maybe this is obvious to you, but the first one is that when work is simplified, there is more clarity and focus. And we've spoken about the clarity before. What that gives us is a more sustainable pattern of work and sustainable habits that we can put in place so that we're not overburdened, so that our teams know what they're doing. Teams will be more motivated to work well together because the requirements aren't blown out any more than they need to be, or what the outputs need to be as well. And then with that, you've got, if the team's on the same page, there's going to be more unity, there's going to be greater morale for your team, and people are going to feel more refreshed and rejuvenated working on the things that they should be working on, and just being more in sync together. So that gives sustainability for the work that we do. There's more time for rest, for rejuvenating, for innovation as well. So there are just a few exciting reasons why it is so worth spending time on your simple work plan, which we're going to talk more about in the next video. I've got 5 key things, practical things that you can do to simplify your work. So watch out for that one, and I'll speak to you soon.